Hi, I'm James with British Customs. Today we're going to show you how to install the Tracker Handlebar Kit on this 2024 Bobber. So the next thing we want to do is we are going to attach our adapter. This is our AN to flare adapter. The bigger threads go in here. If you try to do it backwards, these are really wobbly. They're not really, it will thread up, but it's not right. So make sure the rounded portion, bigger threads are going up. Now this is where you need a standard wrench, 9/16 for this fitting. A 14 won't fit and a 15 is too big. So you need a 9/16. Hold the manifold here with 18 millimeter to support it. We'll tighten those up. Now we can bring our brake line up. Turn that on. Now with our 9/16, we'll hold the fitting and tighten the brake line on with a 7/16, which is another standard one. You can get by with an 11 millimeter. 7/16 is definitely a better fit though. Now you can bring your brake line up and through. And pop it in there. So now for the clutch cable, first thing we want to do is we're going to slacken the cable a bit. So you want to move this rubber cover off and get a 12 millimeter wrench and a 10 millimeter. Hold the bottom, loosen the 12 top there. Turn that up. Okay. Now we're going to slacken the cable up here also. Seems to be about as much as it wants to go. So that's good. What we got to do is get this slot right there lined up with this slot. Same there. Then we can pull our cable up and out. I'm going to pull it out the bottom there, like that. All right, so now I want to move this over to the other side, just to get it out of the way for now. Maybe if you need to, lay a towel or something over there. These are our T25. I'm going to take out the bottom screw. And loosen up the top screw. Leave the top screw in. It'll hold everything in place for us. And we can undo this rubber strap right here. And I like to just put it right back on. That way I know all the cables that went in there stay in there. Okay. Now we can get our clutch cable out of there. So you can see this pulled out on its own, but this would have been in the frame in that hole there. If it didn't pull out, you just need to kind of squeeze it together till it pulls out of there. Okay. Now we can detach it from the bottom. Okay, so now we can detach this from the bottom. With all that slack in the cable, we can get it off of that. We have behind this rubber piece here, you can see a little bit better, there's a clip right there that has to come off. Just use a little screwdriver, pry it off, don't lose it. Now you can pull that out. So now we can route our new cable in. Put that up. And just pull it through. And now we're going to put our clip back on. Pop it into that groove there. Make sure it's fully seated and not falling off. Okay, pull that back. We're going to get our little rubber boot. Push that into place. Sometimes it helps to give it a little spin as you're pushing it on there. Now, clip that in there. So now, we're ready to route it back up. It already kind of fell right into that spot there on its own. Pop it in there. Make sure you grab this clip off of the other one that we took off. I'm going to put it back on. So we put that clip back on to the new one. And that's, just want to kind of pinch it together there and pop it into the hole in the frame there. Okay. So now I'm going to slide this through here. I'm going to take the rubber strap off. Get the cable back in there. Make sure you stay on this side of that wire from the speedometer there. Okay. So make sure you get your ABS sensor wire back into the clip there. Get the screw. Help to get that started first. It's the T25. Start that in, make sure this is seated. Tighten the top back up. Now we can bring our controls back over here. We'll hook our cable back in. Make sure the slots are lined up. Let's see if we can get this. Yeah, that'll go in a little more now. Pop that in. Take up a little bit of that slack there. And then after we install the bar, we can adjust the slack. All right, so now we want to fit our handlebar onto the risers. You need to make a center mark so you know where to lay your bars. Just measure from one end to the other, split the difference up the middle, and make your mark. Before we put the bars into the clamp, we want to get our controls on here because this bar is way too wide, and if you try to do it afterwards, you'll never get them on there. Make sure you have your grip onto your throttle control before you slide it on. That marks center. Now it's important to make sure you have it centered as possible as you can. If you have a black bar, you're going to make marks on here if you tighten it down and then you try to move it later. With this bar, it could always be repolished if you want, but the black bar, you will definitely make a mark. So you want to be extra careful with the black bars. Throw our screws in. Okay, so now just make sure your mark is centered, especially if you have black bars. You want to be as close to dead on as you can right from the start, because you start moving these around and you will make marks in the black. You know, this can be polished back up if you needed to, not a problem. But you really want to get it dead on if you can first time. So you just want to snug down the bottoms with a 5mm Allen. And then we're going to snug down the top. We're not looking to crank these down right now. We need to be able to move this up and down. Best starting point, where you'll probably end up super close to that, would be almost level, maybe down just a little bit. But you would never really want them leaning forward. That wouldn't be too comfortable. So again, with my 5mm Allen, tighten the bottom down a little bit more. And then we'll tighten down the top. Okay, so I'm going to attach our clutch perch back on here. I already measured on our old bar, the grip is 4 7/8 from the end there, so I made a mark there just so I can get us real close to where we want to be. Get these two screws started. These are 5mm Allen. Get that on there. Get our T20 Torx bit. Get these in. So now for this next thing here, we want to attach our grip to this right here. We're going to slide it up. We want to get right to the end here. Leave a little bit of that handlebar exposed. You don't want to be, because if you put bar end mirrors or something on here, you're going to go right up against it and then your throttle will get stuck. So you need to have a little bit of a gap there between whatever you put on the end. Doesn't matter the angle here. We're just looking to decide where we need to tape this up before we drill. So I know that I can make a mark here, and I know my tape needs to fall in here because that's where I got to drill my hole. So now I'm just going to tape this up. So now what we need to do is we need to make a mark. This is what we're drilling a hole for, and that's going to lock in so that the bar, so that the lever doesn't move from its position while you're riding. So what we're going to do is take our marker and we're just going to make a good mark on that. And then we can slide this on. Now we can, you want to start this, but you don't want to make it tight because we need to move it. Just want to make it just snug enough to hold it in place. There. Okay, so now to get the grip off, I'm going to take this bar end off. Take the mirror off. That was a 4mm Allen head, and this is a 5mm. So as you can see, that would have been much better to do while it was still on the bike. So that's what you should do. So if you don't have compressed air, you can use like Windex or some hand sanitizer or something, helps it slide on. Getting it off, same thing. If you can pick up one end and slide some glass cleaner or something like that in there, will slide it off a lot easier. But again, do it while it's still on the bike. Don't forget. That way the bike holds it nice and sturdy. So here we want to first kind of get our bar comfortable where it's at. So kind of like it, like right about there. Want to feel that, you know you're going to be comfortable after a long ride. So once that's good, now I can tighten the bar down so that it doesn't move on me. Okay. Now I want to get my levers where I feel comfortable with them. My thing is I don't want to mess up my tape too much here, so I want to get this close. I want to make sure that this is set so we have a little gap here. If I was to pull this end piece out and put bar and mirrors in there, I don't want it to mess with my throttle. So just want to snug that up enough to keep it from falling. I think I like that right there. Down just a touch. That feels pretty good. So tighten this side down. Then I will double check, make sure they're even. One thing I like to do is just kind of close my eyes and put my hands on the levers. And I can feel this one's down just a little bit. Pick that up. It feels good right there. So now I'm going to tighten this down and hopefully make a nice mark so I know exactly where to drill that hole. Okay. So there's my mark right there. Kind of tore up the tape a little bit, but I still think I can get a good guess where that's at. So I will center punch that. Okay. Okay, so for this bar in particular, the only thing I can do to get this out of the way so I can drill it is I need to remove the throttle sensor from the master cylinder. So now that I know where I have to drill it, I can do that. So I'm going to take that off, and then this is just going to stay on the bar, and we can slide it out of the way and drill it. So use the T20 Torx. Take these two screws out. Make sure you're supporting your master cylinder, because it will just fall right down at this point. Okay. Get that out of the way. Now I can pull that grip off, and that can slide out of my way, and I can drill that. So now, if you feel confident enough with your drill and you want to drill that freehand, you can go for it. But if you don't, they make this cool tool from LSL. It's the company. Comes in 7/8 or 1 inch. And it's got a little drill bushing there. We just line that up with our center punch mark. And then you can drill in nice and straight. So, center punch there. Use our 5mm Allen and tighten that down. Okay, there we go. Yeah, 3/16. All right. It's gonna let them know. We can use the 3/16. I wonder if my 3/16's better.
Still recording.
Okay, that's fine. You can cut that out. So check that. All right. Okay, so now we're going to drill this out. You can use a number 9 drill or a 3/16. Now we just have to open this up. If you open it up to a number 7, it'll make it a really tight fit. So you can try that at first. With this one, the way my mark was, I'm not so sure that it was perfect. So I'm just going to go right up to a 1/4 inch, which will give me a little bit of movement there for a little fine tuning. But you don't really want to go bigger than 1/4 inch. Okay, I can get the tape off. Slide my throttle back into place. Drop in a screw, the T20. Get that one started. The other one started. Just make them hand tight. Now we can get our clamp in place. So our 5mm Allen. One thing you can see with these bars is they're so wide that now the wires are really tight, and if you were to try and, go full right or full left, well, with this one it doesn't even reach. So we have to get more slack in our wires to do that. So in order to do that, we need to rearrange a couple things over here to get more slack in the wires, and we'll be good. All right, so the first thing we need to do is get this little cover off here, and all you really have to do is pry up on there, and you can see they start to come up. There. And then on the bottom, you can just push down and they'll all come out. So what we need to do now is we're going to pull this one here. I'm going to unplug those from there. And then I'm going to pull this one here. And pull these up and get them off of there. We want to move this one to the top. And then it's going to get us a whole bunch more slack that way. But if we bring it back down, we're eating the slack up again. So what we want to do is we're going to cut a little notch right here so that the wires can run straight out. All we need to do is a pair of snips. We got a nice notch there. If anything's sharp, you could probably take a little file to it. All right, so now for rerouting these, we also want to take this one here was from that. We want to take that out. Going to loosen that up too. That's going to go through this way. What we want to do here is we're going to loosen this up so we can move this guy up to the top there. So that that can come straight out now. And then by putting it up top here, gives me a whole bunch more slack there. Now these ones here, I'm going to move up to the top portion there and out through the notch. Now these ones here can go into the middle portion here instead of the top and come out the notch there. The other thing I want to do here is this one here should come above this one. That'll get us over to that side easier. Okay. So now with that all out like that, I can put this back on. It. Okay, everything's nice and neat. Now I can tighten those two back down. Our T20. So now to adjust your clutch, you need to get rid of some of this free play here. Just spin this out. And I'm going to take up some of that, and then you just need to actually get on the bike and pull it out, and you want to kind of adjust it so that you engage your clutch halfway out from movement, you know, from here to there. It should engage and disengage at the halfway point. You know, so if it's engaging too early, you want to make this a little bit tighter, and if it's engaging a little bit too late, just make it a little bit looser, get a little more free play in there. Now we just want to get our straps back on. Okay. get this screwed back on. So now we can put this back on. Got 2 screws. The shorter one goes on the bottom. The longer one goes on the top. Use our T20 Torx bit. Going into plastic here, don't go crazy tight. Put the bottom one in. Now for this side, I'm just going to put 1 strap over here. If we put 2 straps, we're going to be making it all way too tight again. So just want to put up 1 strap so it's not dangling down. Now we're ready to bleed the brakes. All right, we want to start by taking this out. Keep a little rag under there because you may have some residual oil. It's a 14 millimeter. Take it out nice and easy. Make sure there's no fluid coming out. That's good. Now we can take our rubber hose off. All right, so we want to get 1 copper washer on the banjo bolt. Then we want to put it through the banjo with the banjo angled out that way, not if you go in that way, it's going in towards there. You want to go out so it comes this way. Put another copper washer on. And get that bolt started. Get our 14 millimeter. Tighten that up. You want to keep it kind of angled so it's going that way. If you were to start tightening it up and have it go down, well, now it's going to get tighter on you. So trying to keep it where it's comfortable. Let's just kind of keep it straight, angled down just a little bit. Okay. So now we can tighten up the hose. One thing I like to do is try and turn the hose a little bit to the left, because as you tighten it to the right, it's going to want to turn that way. So this will help alleviate some twist in the hose. These are 7/16 wrench or 11 millimeter. And tighten that up. So now I'm going to take the cover off. Pull our little rag out. All right, so now we want to fill this full of fluid. Only use .4 fluid from a sealed container. Don't use something that's been sitting around. It absorbs moisture, so kind of is no good once you open it. Right here you will see, possibly, it might be hard to catch in the camera, but there's a little bar that comes up here, and where it ends, that's our top fill. I don't want to fill it any higher than that. But if you measure that, it's basically the same height as on the other side. You can see the top of the window casting. So that's a little easier to see, so you could look at that. When we're filling it right now, nothing is really level, so we don't want to fill it all the way. You're going to fill it when you get it on the ground. That's where you want to try and set everything nice and level, turn the bars, whatever it takes to get this to sit level, and then you'll top it off and fill it to the high point. So right now we just want to fill it close to the top, but not all the way. So now we want to attach our vacuum bleeder, and we need to loosen that with an 11 millimeter wrench. And what we're going to do, we're going to turn on the bleeder, and then you want to watch up top and keep that full at all times. You don't want to introduce any air into the system. So we just turn this on, and then we sit there with the bottle and keep topping it off until we're getting fluid out here. So I'll shut it off there and just let it bleed out some air there for a little bit. And then if I squeeze the lever very slowly, I should see no air coming out. That looks good. So now I'm going to tighten this up. I'm going to go over to the other side and do the same thing. Now, you want to be very careful. Do not get this brake fluid on anything. It's very corrosive. If you do get it on anything, you got to hose it down with water right away to neutralize it. So before I take this hose off, I'm going to turn the vacuum back on. That way I don't drop any fluid out. And then I'll attach it to the other side. Okay, now I got the vacuum hooked up. I'm going to loosen the bleeder valve, my 11mm wrench. Put a little bit of vacuum to that. Cut that off. Now I got fluid, I will shut the vacuum off. Squeeze the lever. See that I have no air coming out. So now I can tighten up the bleeder. There we go, we got pressure. Now that's done, remember, whatever you do, don't let this run out of fluid, otherwise you introduce air and you got to start all over again. We got enough pressure here that it feels good enough that we can now bring it to the dealer, or if you want to use Tune ECU and do an ABS bleed procedure, which would get any air. If there's any air in the ABS unit itself, we'll get that out. I would not recommend riding this thing until that's done. Make sure your ABS unit is going to work. The other thing I like to do, keep a rag underneath the fittings here. Just because right now, before I fully say this is done, I want to test it for a bit and make sure nothing starts leaking out. If it does, then we need to tighten that up. And so far, everything looks good. While you have this cap off, don't squeeze the lever too hard and don't let it go too hard, or fast, because .4 can come shooting back up and either get in your eye or something, or get on the paint and ruin stuff. Okay, so now before I put the cap on, I want to make sure I have enough fluid in there that it doesn't go low if I turn the bars and I introduce air in there. You don't want to overfill it, so you don't fill it to the top right now. Wait till you have it on the ground and you can have it level. If you happen to overfill it and it's above here, you can just get, a little thing from medicine. I can show you what I got. Had this thing since my kid was a baby. I've been using this. Gives you medicine. Well, now it takes my brake fluid out if I have it a little bit too high. The other thing you could do is just leave the valve open on the bottom and pump it a little bit until you get it down to a level that's below the full mark. And then lock that down and you're good to go. So that's it. Better to be closer to the halfway mark on the window here than it is to be overfull. If you're overfull, you run the risk of your pistons not retracting enough for your pads, and then they wear out, your rotors wear out, your rotor gets hot, gets warped, And then when you need your brakes the most, everything's too hot and you pull the lever and nothing even works. So better to see a little air bubble in the top of the window there than to be filled all the way to the top and be too full. So now we can put the lid back on. So a Phillips head screwdriver. Tighten that down. So now we want to raise the tank up. I'm going to put a little block under there. I'm going to get my hose clamp and put it on there. All right, so now we want to plug in our connectors here. You can't plug the wrong one into the wrong one. They just won't fit together, so don't worry about that. Put those two together, and then slide them back into place here. That. Make sure that that's tight. Pull this out. Make sure that clicks all the way down and then push that lock over. Get that off of there. Now we just have to hook up the vent line. So now we just want to push the vent hose back on there. And then pop it back into this clip. Just push that clip up just enough to hold that. If you're moving it too much, you might break it off. It just needs to hold the hose up, and that's it. Now we can pull the block out, lower the tank down. So now you can put your screw in. You may have to lift the tank up just a little bit. Use our 12mm socket. Don't fully tighten this side yet until you have the other side in. So now we can connect our battery. Get the screw. Make sure this one's connected also. So 5mm Allen bit. Okay. So now we can connect the battery cover. This piece here, don't connect it to this piece of plastic. There's a little metal bar underneath there that you need to grab onto with that. Then we can come up, pop it in place. This is out of alignment, so I just want to take it back off. Try and get it back in. One more time. All looks good. So that's how you install the tracker bar on a 2024 Bobber. Make sure you go to the dealer and get the ABS bleed procedure done, or get Tune ECU if you want to do it yourself. Thanks for watching.